My name is Elias. I'm 31, single, and by most definitions, well off. I work in fintech, specifically systems integration for regional banks. So no, it's not flashy, but it pays more than enough to fund the lifestyle I always dreamed of as a broke teenager in a house where the thermostat stayed at 60 in winter because we're not made of money. I moved out at 19, got a partial scholarship, 2 part-time jobs, and a studio apartment with a leaky sink and paper-thin walls. My parents were proud until they realized I wasn't sending money home. That changed once I landed my first real job at 23. My mom called crying about a past-due medical bill. I paid it. My dad followed up a month later with a story about the car needing brakes. I covered that too. Then came the mortgage, the credit cards, my sister's community college tuition, which mysteriously dropped out of the family budget and fell on me when she threatened to quit. Before I knew it, I was the family wallet. Quiet, reliable, out of sight, but never out of reach. At first, it felt like love, like I was finally being accepted on their terms. But eventually, the calls stopped being requests. They became expectations. If I was a day late sending money, I'd get guilt-tripped by mom. Your father's blood pressure spikes every time a bill comes in. Do you want that on your conscience? Or passive-aggressive texts from dad like, guess we'll just sell the fridge and live off ice. Meanwhile, my brother Micah, 2 years younger, still living at home, floated between warehouse jobs and startup ideas that never went anywhere. He was the creative one, the one with real passion, according to our parents. Never mind the fact that he hadn't contributed a single cent to the household in 5 years. He helped carrying groceries, so apparently, that balanced the scales. Still, I stayed quiet. I told myself it wasn't worth the fight. I saw them twice a year, Thanksgiving and Christmas. Every other interaction was digital. I kept the peace by wiring the money, answering the calls, and sending gifts labeled from all of us. Even though Micah never chipped in a dime. I didn't do it because I wanted gratitude. I did it because some naive part of me thought I was investing in a version of family I never really had growing up. One where we didn't keep score. That illusion shattered last Christmas. It started with a text from mom 2 weeks out. Don't overthink your gift. We just want your presents. Bring that apple pie you made last year. No problem. I booked the flight, scheduled the rental, and wrapped a custom-engraved watch I bought for myself back in November. A reminder to take time for myself after a brutally long product launch. I hadn't worn it yet. Thought I'd wait until New Year's. The moment I walked into the house, I knew something was off. The decorations were extra, like they were trying to impress someone. Lights in every window, a fresh coat of paint on the porch, and that fake snow stuff sprayed on the bushes, even though we lived in Georgia. Inside, the house was packed. My cousin Ava, who I hadn't seen in years. Uncle Don and his third wife. Even Aunt Thelma, who hadn't spoken to Dad since the casserole war of 2012. I didn't mind the crowd. What bothered me was the whispering. The way everyone looked at me like I was the UPS guy delivering turkey instead of family. And Micah? He didn't even get up from the couch when I walked in. Just raised a can of Sprite like he was toasting a bet he'd just won. Look who decided to show up, he said with a grin. Long flight, I muttered, setting the pie on the counter. Dinner came and went in a blur of small talk and lukewarm mashed potatoes. I was mostly quiet, half listening while Dad complained about woke car commercials and Mom bragged about Micah's latest podcast, which, by the way, had 4 episodes and no listeners. I didn't say anything. I just nodded, passed the gravy, and tried to feel like I belonged. Then came the toast. My dad stood up, cleared his throat dramatically like he was announcing the end of a war, and raised his glass. To the son who actually shows up, he said, his eyes fixed on Micah. Not the one who just sends money. The room erupted into polite laughter. Even Mom chuckled behind her wine glass. Micah smirked and leaned back in his chair like he'd just won a gold medal in emotional gymnastics. I blinked. My face got hot, not from embarrassment, but from clarity. Because in that moment, it hit me. They didn't just take me for granted, they resented me. My brother, who once totaled his car and used my credit to lease a new one, was their golden child. The one who actually showed up. I was the ATM, the backup plan, the guy who paid for Christmas dinner but wasn't invited to carve the turkey. And the watch? That was the final straw. After dinner, I caught Micah in the living room, casually unwrapping a gift box that looked painfully familiar. The custom watch. the one I'd bought for myself. I stood there, frozen, as he slid it onto his wrist. Dude, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Where'd you get that? He shrugged. It was under the tree. Said it was from you. It was mine, I replied slowly. He just laughed. Well, thanks, man. Always wanted one of these. I walked upstairs without another word. My old bedroom had been turned into a laundry room. No joke, there was a stacked washer-dryer where my desk used to be. I sat on the bed, a cot, actually, and stared at the ceiling for a long time, hearing their voices echo through the floorboards. Laughter, music, clinking glasses. Not one person had said thank you. Not one person had asked how I was. They didn't care that I'd covered the rent last month or paid off the credit card bill that covered their flights to Orlando. They cared that I didn't come to brunch, that I didn't like football, that I didn't show up. That night, I waited until everyone was asleep, pulled out my laptop, logged into the accounts I'd set up years ago to make their lives easier, and reviewed every connection. The mortgage? In my name. The utilities? All me. The family Netflix account? Guess who? I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I started typing. By 3 a.m., the house was mine again. Autopays, canceled. Credit cards, deactivated. Scheduled transfers, paused indefinitely. I even set up a few email alerts, just for fun. But the real cherry on top? A message, scheduled to drop into the family group chat at 8 a.m. sharp. 5 words. Merry Christmas, you're all past due. And just as I was about to hit save, my phone buzzed. It was Micah. Hey, he texted. Where'd you go? People are asking. I didn't answer, because I was already planning what came next. I didn't sleep, not even a little. I sat on that narrow cot with my back against the wall, watching the minutes tick by on my phone like I was defusing a bomb, or maybe lighting one. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, not because I doubted myself, but because I needed to feel it. Every second, every quiet click that signaled the end of an era I should have walked away from years ago. Micah never followed up after his first text. Typical. He probably wandered back to the party, flaunting my watch like a prize from a vending machine, completely unaware that the foundation of his cozy little world was already cracking. Downstairs, someone put on Mariah Carey, too loud, slightly off-key. I closed my laptop, stood up, and looked around the makeshift guest room one last time. The laundry detergent stacked where my books used to be. A random beach towel thrown over a broken chair in the corner. The suitcase I brought was still zipped, unopened. Like even it knew I wouldn't be staying long. I crept down the stairs, careful not to wake the dog. Yes, they had a new golden retriever now, another surprise I learned about from a cousin's Instagram post. I grabbed my coat, slipped out the front door, and drove to the hotel I'd secretly booked earlier that evening, one with an actual bed and working heat. On the way there, I passed a billboard advertising some tacky holiday attraction. Christmas is what you make it, I scoffed out loud. Not this year. At 7:59 a.m. the next morning, I was already sitting at a corner booth in a quiet cafe near the airport, sipping bad coffee and watching the sun rise over a frozen parking lot. I had my laptop open, not for work, just to watch. I refreshed the group chat. 8 o'clock. Nothing. 8:01. And then it hit. Mom, Elias? What does this mean? Micah, dude. Did you just cancel the Wi-Fi? Dad, call me now. This isn't funny. Mom again. Why isn't the mortgage showing up? The app says it's inactive. My phone started ringing immediately. First Mom, then Dad, then Micah, of all people. I didn't answer. Just muted the notifications and watched as more texts poured in, each one more frantic than the last. Dad, I just got off the phone with the bank. What did you do? Micah, you're being really dramatic, bro. We can talk. Talk. Now they wanted to talk. I scrolled past the messages and stared at my own final text. Just 5 words. But they hit like a gavel. Merry Christmas, you're all past due. I hadn't realized how much weight I'd been carrying until that moment. It wasn't just the money. It was the constant expectation to prove myself. To buy my place in a family that only remembered I existed when the bills came due. Every year, I thought, maybe this time it'll be different. Maybe they'll see me. Maybe they'll say thank you. Maybe I won't be the invisible support beam holding everything together from hundreds of miles away. But no, I wasn't their son. I was their subscription service. And the free trial just ended. Still, I didn't block them. Not yet. I wanted to give them a chance, just one, to respond like human beings. Not clients. Not leeches. but actual people who understood what they'd done. I waited all day, kept my phone on silent, but checked the notifications every hour. Most were variations of panic and rage. Mom, you're overreacting. We never asked you to pay for everything. Dad, if you wanted recognition, you should have said something. This is just petty. Micah, wow. Way to ruin Christmas. But one message stood out. It came in late that evening, right as I was packing to leave the hotel. Mom, Elias, you've always been so distant. We thought you preferred it that way. We didn't know you felt like this. That gave me pause. Not because it was an apology, it wasn't. It was a deflection, a way to twist the blame into something passive, something my fault for not being more emotionally available while I was paying off their second mortgage. I read it twice. Then I closed the phone and let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. I didn't reply. Instead, I headed to the airport early. I had a one-way ticket home, my real home, 2 states over. A place with silence, hardwood floors, and 0 family photos on the walls. Just the way I liked it. On the flight, I looked out the window and wondered how long it would take them to realize that the silence wasn't temporary. Because this time, I wasn't coming back to fix it. I wasn't going to restore the auto payments or talk things out. I'd tried that. Too many times. I'd hoped they'd change. That they'd grow into the people I kept pretending they were. But sometimes, family doesn't grow. Sometimes, they rot in place and expect you to keep watering the dead plant just because it's related to you. So I stopped. But the real storm hadn't hit yet. Because what I did after that, that was the part they never saw coming. When I landed, I ignored the dozen voicemails clogging up my inbox. One was just Mom sobbing. Another was Dad shouting about legal consequences like he hadn't been coasting on my credit score for 6 years. Micah left the last one. His tone had shifted from smug to stunned. Bro, just call me, okay? I don't get why you're doing this. I thought we were good. Good? The last time we had a real conversation, he called me a corporate sellout for wearing a blazer to brunch. Now suddenly we were brothers again because the lights flickered and he couldn't watch his YouTube channel on the family Wi-Fi. I shut off my phone completely. The next 3 days were pure silence, and I loved every second of it. I went for long walks. I made real coffee, none of that bitter machine-brewed junk. I read the book that had been sitting on my shelf for months, and I actually slept. Deeply. The kind of sleep you don't get when you're living a double life. Provider on the outside, forgotten on the inside. But on day 4, I checked the mail. It was the mortgage statement. Final one under their name. See, when I bought the house for them years ago, I never transferred the deed. I told myself I'd get to it, that it was just paperwork. But deep down, I think I knew. Knew there'd be a day I'd need an escape hatch. And now I had one. The moment I canceled the auto payments, the bank reverted everything to default settings. That meant the paper trail came back to me. The debt, the equity, and the ownership. Officially, that house was still mine, and I was tired of pretending otherwise. So I drove to the nearest notary, filed a quitclaim deed naming myself the sole occupant, and overnight a certified letter to the house, one addressed to my parents, with a copy of the new deed inside. I didn't include a note. I didn't need to. The envelope spoke for itself. A day later, my phone lit up again. I didn't answer. I just stared at the incoming call. Mom. Then Dad. Then Micah. Again and again. I let it ring. But that night, curiosity got the better of me. I turned my phone on, just for 5 minutes, and opened the family group chat. Over 40 messages. Dad, you cannot do this. You cannot just take the house. Mom, this is beyond cruel. We thought you were better than this. Micah, are you seriously kicking your own parents out? What is wrong with you? Then, buried in the chaos, one message that made me stop scrolling. A voice memo. From my sister, Grace. She rarely got involved. She was the middle child, for years younger than me, and moved to Oregon the second she turned 18. We'd talked a few times over the years, birthdays, holidays, but she always kept her distance. Said the family was too much. Said she was trying to break the cycle. Her voice message was only 30 seconds long. Hey, I know this is probably insane from your end, but I saw the texts. I saw the way they talk about you when you're not around. I just want you to know, I get it. I've been watching them drain you dry for years while pretending Micah walks on water. You're not crazy. You're just done. And I think you should be. I played it twice. Then again. Her voice was calm, unshaken. She wasn't siding with me. She was acknowledging me. Which, honestly, was more than I could say about the rest of them. That night, I called her. We talked for 3 hours. Not about the house or the fallout, just about life. Her job, my job. Our mutual hatred of pumpkin spice. Somewhere around midnight, she said, "They're gonna come after you harder now. Emotionally. Legally, maybe. Just be ready." I was. Because I still hadn't dropped the final hammer. See, there was one thing they didn't know. One last card they didn't realize I held. It wasn't money. It wasn't legal power. It was something more explosive. It was the trust fund. Back when I started making real money, I opened a family trust. One of those tax-efficient estate things with lots of fine print and legal jargon. I set it up to protect the assets I didn't need in the short term. Investment properties, a few market accounts, and yes, the house. All of it funneled through a single entity with my name on the title and my signature on the rules. And one of those rules, any dependent receiving financial assistance could be removed at my discretion. And I had receipts. So many receipts. Thousands of dollars in rent, tuition, groceries, phone bills, medical copays. All transferred from me to them over the course of 8 years. I kept it all. Every Venmo screenshot. Every wire receipt. Every single cent. Because I knew one day I'd need to prove that helping them wasn't an accident. It was a gift. And gifts can stop. I drafted the letter that night. Not angry. Not cruel. Just clear. I attached a printout of every transaction, a copy of the trust bylaws, and a closing statement. You taught me that family shows up. This is me showing up for myself. Effective immediately, your access is revoked. Do not contact me for money again. I hadn't sent it yet, but I knew exactly when I would. Christmas was over, but New Year's? That's when the real fireworks would begin. New Year's Eve rolled in like fog over the runway. Slow, heavy, inevitable. I spent the last week of December living in a kind of surreal quiet, as if the volume on the entire world had been turned down just for me. No texts from family, finally. They'd stopped sometime around December 29th. Not because they understood, because they were regrouping. I knew them too well. If the initial storm didn't work, anger, guilt, panic, then they'd come back with something even worse, silence. The kind that pretends to be peace, but is actually just war in waiting. I didn't celebrate that night. No party, no champagne, no countdown. Just me, my desk, and a manila envelope already addressed to my parents. Inside was everything. The official removal documents from the trust, copies of all the financial transactions I'd made on their behalf since I was 23, and a notarized declaration revoking their claim to any of my assets, property, or accounts. At the bottom was one final page, clean, simple, brutally direct. As of January 1st, 2025, you are no longer entitled to any financial assistance, property, or access to my resources in any form. This decision is final, legally binding, and irreversible. Please do not contact me unless through legal representation. Elias. I dropped it in the mail first thing on New Year's morning, just as the sky began to lighten. No fanfare. No last-minute hesitation. Just a breath, a step, and the sharp, cold air of a clean slate. 3 days passed before I heard from them again. It started with Micah. He emailed me. He never emails me. Under the subject line, "Please read." The body of the message was long, jumbled, obviously written in one emotional burst. He said things like, "You didn't have to go nuclear," and "You know mom's been crying every day," and my personal favorite, "I didn't ask for any of that stuff anyway." No apology. No real ownership. Just a desperate flailing at the wreckage. He ended it with, "I don't even care about the money. Just don't destroy the family." I didn't reply. Because what family? A few hours later, Dad left a voicemail. His voice was low, calm, even a little choked up. He was trying to sound like the reasonable patriarch. The same tone he used when he talked his way out of a traffic ticket or convinced a bank manager to waive overdraft fees. "Elias, I think you've made your point. Loud and clear. We're willing to talk. In person. No more yelling, no blaming. Let's just be civil." Clever phrasing. You've made your point. As if this was all a tantrum. As if what I'd done was performative, instead of the final result of 8 years of buried resentment and one very deliberate unraveling. I turned off my phone again. But then came the letter. Real ink, real signature, real desperation. This time from Mom. She wrote 3 pages. Front and back. No punctuation. Just one long emotional purge of everything she thought might sway me. old memories, baby stories, how I used to love Christmas, and how proud we are of the man you became, even if we don't say it enough. She didn't mention the toast, or the watch, or the years I paid to keep them comfortable while they barely acknowledged my existence. She ended it with, "We're your family. We love you. Families forgive." And there it was again. That word, forgive, the weapon they always reached for last. Not when they were sorry, but when I refused to forget. So I sent one final reply. Just one. Forgiveness is earned, not extracted. You had 8 years of mine. I'm using the next 8 for myself. Then I blocked them all. I changed my number. I closed the shared Netflix account. I even called the storage unit place and removed their access code. Every digital tether was severed, one by one, like I was dismantling a bomb I'd been wearing like jewelry. And it felt free, not bitter, not triumphant, just light. But the story doesn't end with silence. Because 6 months later, something happened I didn't expect. I got a letter from Grace. I hadn't heard from her since New Year's. Not because we were distant, but because, unlike the rest of the family, Grace understood boundaries. She knew I needed time, and she gave it freely. Her letter was short. 1 page. Typed. Neat. Simple. "Hey Eli, just wanted you to know that I moved Mom and Dad into a small apartment outside Athens. They lost the house, obviously. Micah tried to cover rent for 2 months, then gave up. Dad's pride is too big for him to get a job, but Mom started working part-time at a fabric store. I visit once a month, but I don't bring the kids. It's not guilt. It's just observation. They still talk about you like you're the villain, like you burned the bridge. But I tell them every time, no, he just stopped letting you walk across him. Proud of you. Really, Grace." I sat there for a long time after reading it. Not because I felt sorry for them. I didn't. Not even close. But because for the first time in my life, someone in that family saw me clearly. And that was worth more than every Christmas gift, every rent payment, every forced phone call I'd ever made. I still live alone. I still work in fintech. But now, I use my money differently. I set up a scholarship fund under a pseudonym, one that specifically supports students with no family financial support. I've mentored 2 young professionals who remind me way too much of myself at 23. And this year, I spent Christmas in Tokyo. Alone. By choice. I walked through snow-covered gardens, ate ramen in silence, and at midnight, I wrote a single sentence in my journal. I used to think freedom was leaving. Turns out, it's staying gone. There's no dramatic showdown, no court battle, no viral post or flaming group chat meltdown. Just a clean cut. A life reclaimed. A line drawn with surgical precision. They taught me that showing up makes you family. So I showed up for myself. And I never looked back.